In 1971, our 7 founders turned an idea into a business. Today, we celebrate 50 years of innovation in the automotive aftermarket, leading the pack every step of the way. We wanted a way to show recognition for all the people who helped this small Midwestern company become a global leader in automotive maintenance. A logo is a symbol of who you are and what you do. This logo is centered around 50 years, which marks BG's major milestone. The ribbons on the side represent this great celebration. The shield signifies strength through products, through partnership, through character. The oil drop is iconic throughout the BG family, representing quality products. The 7 stars are a tribute to the 7 founders, if only they could see us now. Thank you for your continued support as we drive to a successful future together. Please join us in celebrating BG's first 50 years.
Oh, I love Transformers. I'd watch cartoons all day. Wait, stick it in neutral, Megatron Marge. And bring me a donut. Donuts. Or a sweet roll. Well, I guess it's time to roll on with Mike Maroone and the Tech Panel, sponsored by AutoMax. Bart, why, you little... Go!
Welcome back to day 2 of the Fixed Ops Roundtable. And as I mentioned before the break, Ted, our next guest has been both a pioneer and a transformer in the automotive industry.
That's right, Gene. Mike Maroone is one of the best known and most highly regarded automotive leaders of our time. His family is now in its 3rd generation in the retail auto business, where Mike started out at his family's Ford dealership in Western New York. He then became general manager of the first Maroone dealership in South Florida. The Maroone Automotive Group would grow to 9 dealerships before merging with AutoNation in 1997, where he became the key architect for their growth and served as president and chief operating officer until 2015. Mike saw the development and implementation of the operating structure, processes in sales, fixed operations, and e-commerce. And today he leads the Mike Maroone family of dealerships, which consists of dealerships in Colorado and Florida. Mike Maroone, welcome to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Ted, good afternoon. It's really great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Mike, you've got an amazing career, and I only touched on a few things there. One of those is longevity. And, you've been in our business for a long time. Tell our audience a little bit about growing up in the car business in Buffalo, at the Ford dealership, and then South Florida. And then ultimately that big decision to join AutoNation, very brave at its time.
Well, you just spanned a long period of time, but let me start by saying I started in the business at 2. My goal in life was always to hang out with my dad, and he worked every day and every night. So not only did we talk business, but every Saturday I visited the store. And even growing up, starting working when I was 13, worked in all the different departments and was blessed to have a mentor like him that taught me the business and taught me the value of building teams and treating guests right. We then moved to Florida in 1977 and bought a bankrupt Ford store in a very downtrodden area. And my dad put me in. It was my first leadership role of running an entire store. And although it was very bumpy and a very tough situation, I literally worked every day for 2 years, 7 days a week, out of fear of losing my dad's capital. And we ended up, he and I and a great team of people, and they got building a really nice private cap business. We moved into another county and kept buying additional stores. And at one time, built the largest store in America. Wouldn't be today, but it was then. And it was just a wonderful experience to build a business with my dad and with a great team. And then came along Wayne Huizenga. And Wayne was a legend. We met a number of times with both Wayne and Steve Berard, who was the co-CEO. And I made a decision to trade a second generation family business for the opportunity to work with Wayne and Steve and to build something very special. Wayne had access to tremendous amounts of capital from his success at Waste Management and Blockbuster. Steve was behind the scenes, but a great leader and a great deal guy. And off we went with Republic Industries that later became AutoNation.
And that literally was one of the big changing events in the automotive retail industry in our lifetimes. You took a real, what was considered then risky proposition, and there was a lot of opposition, Mike, as I remember, when the manufacturers started seeing the acquisition of all these franchises. What was that like to go through that early period?
Well, Ted, we had a lot of ups and downs, but I would tell you it was an incredible time. Wayne didn't open the door to consolidation. He kicked it down. And he had early supporters in Detroit. He had a lot of opposition in Japan and LA. And one by one, we agreed to framework agreements. We were performance driven, and we built an incredible business. And it wasn't just Wayne and I and Steve. Along came Mike Jackson, who did a tremendous job. And Mike and I, and a very talented team, worked together for 15 years. I was at AutoNation or Republic for 18 years. Mike and I worked together for 15 years. And I think we built together a very great company with a lot of help.
Did you know at the time that you were embarking on building the largest retail automotive group in the world? Did you know that would happen?
Absolutely not. I knew that Wayne was very special. I knew that capital was critical. I knew he was bold. He used to use this term of speed as a competitive advantage. We became the fastest growing company in the US back in 1998. I don't think you ever know where it's going to go, but I would tell you it was incredible. We worked day and night and traveled the country and built an organization. And then luckily, we're able to surround ourselves with outstanding people that helped us be successful.
And you've had a unique perspective of running a family business and then running a publicly traded automotive dealership group. And that's not something that everybody gets to see from your vantage point. And now you've come back into the retail automotive industry, and you're coming back in a big way. Why, Mike?
Well, first, I'm hopelessly addicted to auto retail. I think auto retail is a fascinating business, and what makes it fascinating is taking a group of people and helping them be successful, and then focusing everybody on a guest experience. So the reason I came back, in all candor, is one, I miss the business and I miss the people in the business. But secondly, I had a unique opportunity to involve family members that were from the next generation. And we call this the knowledge transfer phase. And it's an expression that I borrowed from AutoNation, but it allows me to take a lifetime of learning, both from my dad, from Wayne, from Mike Jackson, and many, many others that mentored me, and be able to share some of that wisdom while understanding the business is in change. So I have 3 family members in leadership positions. I also have some great operating partners. Our operating partners are able to have equity in the business, and we have a great support team as well. So the chance of working with them to build and grow another business was irresistible.
Tell us about your dealerships in Colorado and Florida. What franchises, and tell us what's going on there.
Well, in Colorado Springs, which is a very unique market that doesn't have the highs and lows of some of the high growth markets, but it's a wonderful place to live. We've got 2 Chevrolet stores, a Honda store, and a Volkswagen store. So in each of those franchises, we only have one facing competitor. So for a guy that grew up working in the big cities, both privately and with AutoNation, having one competitor is a very different way to go. We also have a Ford store in Longmont, Colorado, that's north of Denver, and we have a Chevrolet store in West Palm Beach, Florida. So what attracts us those are great places to live and work. They're great places to find talent, and they're very pro-business environments, and it worked out really well for us. We love both markets and love the brands we represent.
You know, a big part of our discussion at the event this week has been dealership culture and the importance of a strong culture in the dealership. And I know you've had, again, that perspective several times over now. Tell us about your mission, your company's values. What have you set for them?
Well, first of all, the founding principle of our businesses, and I'm involved in almost 50 businesses outside of auto retail, a little bit of insanity, but we call it a culture of caring, where it really starts with associates caring about each other and doing little things to help other people. It then extends to our guests, it extends to our OEM partners, it extends to our lenders, and most importantly, it extends to our community. So that culture of caring is something we hope you can feel as soon as you walk in our store. And so that's important. And what it does, it breeds trust. It's driven by transparency. And I'd say the other redeeming value is we are there to help our people be successful and be successful by helping guests make good buying and ownership decisions.
That's amazing. The past year and a half, we've probably seen more change take place at the retail automotive level than maybe would have seen in the next 5 or 10 years. That all got consolidated, Mike, I think, into the last, like I said, 18 months or so. And one of the areas that our audience has been talking about quite a bit is employee retention and keeping employees in the current climate. And I think it's always been a challenge in our industry. But tell us what you think is the key to, retaining employees over the long term.
Ted, I think the key really is to help them grow. People don't come to just sit there and do the same thing their whole life, especially the upcoming generations. People want to be challenged, they want to be trained, and we put a tremendous amount of effort into people development. I think we've now promoted 16 different associates into management roles in the last couple of years. We are using NADA, we've got an in-house trainer, we do mentoring programs. Most importantly, we try and include a broad group of associates in our decision making and in our discussions. And I think it's paid off really well for us. The talent pool is very thin in business in general, especially thin in auto retail. So rather than always looking for the next shining star to solve your business problems, I think it's more appropriate to invest in the people you have and to give them the knowledge to be successful. It's not like a football team where you put people on waivers. We make commitments to our people and ask that they make commitments to us. And so far, it's worked really well.
And that employee retention is carried through. We even see, of course, the technician retention was already so difficult going into the pandemic period, and now it's even more difficult today. Does that training and all those processes apply as well on the fixed ops side?
Oh, it certainly does. And, technicians are by far the toughest people to find. And my dear friend, Carl Sewell, who wrote the book Customer for Life, when I asked him once, what's the advice you give your children coming up in the business? And his answer was very clear. Go find, hire, and retain the best technicians that can help you provide the best guest experience. So rather than starting with the superstar general manager, let's start with the people that solve guest problems. And I think it's great advice. Our service consultants, our service managers, our parts team, our technicians, they all have to act together. If any one of them doesn't do their job, the whole guest experience is spoiled. And we're really blessed to have good people. We'll never have enough, but we appreciate the ones we have and we invest in them.
And we're starting to see a lot more on the fixed ops side of that employee who can grow within the business. Earlier in the show, we had a gentleman who's a good friend of the conference named Ed Roberts, who is now the chief operating officer at Bozard Ford Lincoln in St. Augustine, Florida. And Ed came up and most recently, for the past 10 or so years, was a fixed ops director. And they offered him that career path where now he can oversee what is the largest Lincoln dealership, from what I understand, in the United States, perhaps in the world, and probably the biggest shop on the East Coast. So that career path in fixed ops is so important as well.
It is. And, I'm familiar with Ed. I don't know him well, but I admire what he's done. But the principles in fixed ops are not that different than the principles in variable. You have to overmanage your traffic. You have to have early manager involvement. You need to use technology to become more efficient and more transparent. And you just have to keep reinvesting both in your facilities and your people and your tools. And I don't think that fixed ops is as different from variable ops as it has been historically.
No, and you mentioned technology there. There's been so much happening in our industry in the ways of technology. And I think back to when they said, Amazon can't possibly work, all right, because they keep losing money. And then we recently heard that just a few years ago on the Carvana side as well. There's no way that could possibly work. Yet what's happened is that a lot of technology now has thrived, and consumers are very comfortable and as are we, in interacting over the telephone to make decisions on both sales and service, and now F&I as well. How do you see as technology playing a role as we move forward in the retail auto industry?
Well, I think technology is going to be critical. If you want to have a digital experience, you have to change your pricing, and you need technology to support your pricing. If you want to do an online transaction, you need opportunity there. If you want to manage your inventories, you need real-time data. If you want to communicate with guests, you need a variety of ways and an omnichannel way to communicate with guests. So I think technology is really, really important. And I'd say personally for me, having an opportunity to work with the Carvana team as as the lead director and one of the board of directors with a really good board has been an incredible experience. I say that it gave me a front row seat to the future, but I see how they've used technology to both drive costs down, make better decisions, and communicate with guests the way they want to be communicated with, and then drive tremendous volume. It's very impressive, and I am privileged to be part of that team.
So for the retail audience watching, the dealers and the managers, how do we, because we all realize it's still a people business at the end of the day, and it's built on relationships and strong relationships. How do we keep that balance between technology and the people side of the business? What do you think?
Well, I think you need both, and you need scrappy, hungry, smart people, but they can be smarter and more successful using technology. And I think what the pandemic has taught us is that we better pivot, and we better pivot quickly. And we're going to have to learn new ways to do business. And frankly, some of them are very different. When you move into a non-negotiable environment, your compensation plans change, your pricing becomes critical, your sales process is different. And to play in the digital world, it can't be the same old way of just seeing how much can I get from the guest for every product or service I have. It's got to be value driven. It's got to be quick and easy and guest friendly.
On the fixed ops side, Mike, our event, the Fixed Ops Roundtable, initially started out as a physical event where we would go from city to city, and we were on the East Coast and West Coast and doing these physical events, and we would bring key dealers in to speak. We had Fred Bean speak at one of the events. We had Brian Benstock show us something in 2019 called Service Pickup and Delivery that he had been championing at Queens, New York at Paragon Honda. And he had been doing it for a couple of years and working with the folks at Google. And a lot of folks who came to those meetings said, gee, I don't really know if that will ever take hold, the service pickup and delivery, if there's a need for that. But then we had to adapt with the pandemic, and we went virtual rather than just wait this thing out. And one of the things that was said at one of our first virtual conferences is that fixed ops last year has more than ever become the front of the store, where a lot of dealerships were not able to operate as they had in a sales environment. Fixed ops was now of new importance, that service and parts and body shop. How do you see the importance of fixed ops in the retail mindset?
Well, I think it's critical. I think it's remembering that fixed ops challenge is to solve the guest problem. This isn't about generating gross or retaining gross. Yes, that's the business side of it. But the number one opportunity is to solve the guest problems. If you can do that on a consistent, regular basis and meet your commitment, make good promises and live up to those promises and solve the problem, you can cement a relationship with the guest that's very special. And it can't be broken by a digital seller or others. There becomes a two-way loyalty. So I think that opportunity to serve guests is critical. I also want to call out that as we were deemed an essential service and our service departments were open, my admiration for the men and women that work in those departments across the country, not just in my stores, is incredible. A lot of us hunkered down in our homes. We work remotely. We did Zoom calls. we participated, but we weren't at risk. These people literally put themselves at risk every day, showed up 6 days a week to serve our guests, and I will never forget it. I am eternally grateful to that group, and I think the relationships that were cemented then, both internally and externally with our guests, will benefit our business for a very long time.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. Finally, last question. For our dealers and managers watching, what do you think is next? What's ahead for the retail car industry? What's on the horizon? What should we be keeping our eye on? What should we be aware of?
I think the most important thing, Ted, is change. We are going to have to be great change management people. And this has been going on for the last 40 years, but everything is accelerating. Electrification is going to change our industry in a big way. I think that digital selling is going to change in a big way. But what's not going to change is our reliance on people, whether you're at Carvana, the people at Carvana, or you're at the Mike Maroone Auto Group, or you're in any organization. You are going to need talented, motivated associates to deal with this change. And it's not going to be the same business. I think it's going to be as good or better, but it's not going to be the same. And you just can't put your feet get stuck in the mud and say, well, here's how we've always done it. Here's our best practices over the last 20 years. You're going to need bright people that are working with you that can adapt and change and have fun doing it, because it is a really fun business.
It is. And Mike, on behalf of the Fixed Ops Roundtable, thank you so much. You've got so much going on right now, not only with your own dealerships, but with all your other interests and companies and things that you're doing. And, you're really leading the way and continuing to be a true pioneer in our industry.
Ted, thanks for the kind words. Thanks for having me. And let me just be clear, all the successes that we've had are due to the people that we work with. It's not all about me, it's about the team, and they prove it to me every single day. So thanks for having me. Good luck with the rest of your roundtable. Hope we can get together again.
Mike Maroone, thank you so much. Mike Maroone here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thank you, Mike. We appreciate you sharing some time with us and all those great stories and experience that you have. The technician panel, sponsored by AutoMax, is next.
It used to be that finding the right talent for your car dealership could get a little hairy. Maybe you were just looking in the wrong places. But now that's all changed. At AutoMax Recruiting and Training, we've helped recruit, screen, and place over 180,000 retail automotive professionals in every department. Along with our robust in-person training programs, with AutoMax, you'll be pushing the hire button in no time. AutoMax Recruiting and Training. Any other retail automotive talent search is positively primitive.
Well, Joe Lockard of AutoMax Recruiting, thank you so much for sponsoring this amazing panel and such a timely topic that we have today. But before we get into the introductions, I am kind of curious because I know that AutoMax has been around for a long time in the training area and developed quite a great reputation in that arena. But tell us a little bit about the recruiting aspect.
Yeah, sure. And thank you, Gene. Thanks for having me and allowing me to sponsor the panel. We've been around for 24 years, like you said, and as we put it, from porters to president, we do full service dealership staffing. And keeping with the theme of what we're going to talk about today, I mean, obviously it's an issue within our industry, and it's probably the majority of our recruiting at this point is fixed ops related. Everything from finding them, screening them, getting them in front of dealers, short of getting in the car and driving them to the appointment and, actually showing up with their toolbox. It's a big part of what we do. So I'm just happy to be here. We got a real good panel and excited to get going.
You do have a great panel, and we're excited to hear from it. So I'm going to give you the show. It's all up to you now.
Thank you, sir. And yeah, let's go around. First I want to do a quick intro for everybody, and then we'll jump right in. We have a lot to cover here today. First with us, we have Ann Lister. Hello, Ann. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Very good. Ann is a service manager with the Williams Auto Group in Elmira, New York. And I know, Ann, you were mentioning to us before the show, you're kind of Western New York, Finger Lakes area, correct?
Yes, correct. Yep.
Right on the New York PA border?
Pretty close, yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, thanks for being here. Next, we have Marco Zwanenberg. Marco, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Marco is a 21 years. Is that correct? 21 years an automotive technician?
You're flattering me there, but it's more like a quarter century. So let's go with 25. But yes,
25 years, even better. 25 years an automotive technician, currently working for Naples Luxury Imports in Naples, Florida. And Marco shares some wonderful Florida sunsets with everybody on a daily basis.
Oh, thank you.
Follow him on LinkedIn. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So thank you for being here. Next, we have Michael Weldon. Michael, how are you today?
Fine, thanks. Thanks for inviting me to your panel.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being here. Mike is fixed ops director for the Hansel Auto Group out in Santa Rosa, California. You're in wine country out there, aren't you, sir?
We're in wine country and fire country.
Yeah, right. Good and bad. You get a little bit of both. Well, thank you for being here, Mike. I appreciate it. Next is Robert Stage. Robert is the CEO and lead diagnostic tech for Stage 1 Mobile Diagnostic and Repair. And you, sir, are in and around beautiful Columbus, Ohio. Is that correct?
That's correct, Joe.
Home of the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm a big Buckeye fan. I had to get a plug in there for the Buckeyes. Thank you for being here, Robert. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the invitation.
No problem. Last and certainly not least, my friend Sean Kingery, Director of Fixed Operations for Step 1 Automotive. Step 1 based primarily out of the Fort Walton, Florida region there in the Panhandle, but you guys have several locations in Georgia, and I believe just opened a location in Alabama, correct?
That is correct, sir.
Awesome.
17 dealerships, 22 businesses now total.
Beautiful, beautiful. Congrats, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to jump right in here, guys. Like I said, we got a lot to get to. 3 questions that I want to go over, and really the theme here is how and why and what ways flat rate warranty work is affecting the tech shortage that we're seeing throughout the industry. So I'm going to jump through these questions, just kind of go around the room. Everyone can get their thoughts on it. First question, do you feel that warranty flat rate is causing technicians to leave the industry? Ann, I will start with you.
So, hi, thank you for having me, Joe.
No problem.
You know what, it's tough. So I do believe flat rate plays a huge role in our shortages. We used to think that the independents stole our customers, but now they're really stealing our employees. Like seriously, they can go to these, Firestones, Jiffy Lubes, and whatever, and you're doing the maintenance and you're doing the light repair work, and you don't have to worry about warranty times. You don't have to worry about making the hours and getting something from the OEM and only having 7/10 to perform something that takes an hour and a half.
Sure.
So I think it's really tricky, and they really do us a disservice by putting those times at such minimal points. So
Sure.
yeah, I think it definitely makes it challenging for us to compete on that level.
Gotcha. Absolutely. And I would agree with a lot of the points you made there. Marco, you're yourself being a obviously very successful technician and being in a dealership, what's kind of your take on that?
I agree with what Ann said, is that the problem is that warranty labor times are plummeting. Over the 25 years in my career, I have to work harder and harder to make the same amount of money. The only problem is that our customer pay prices are based off of warranty times, so they are coming down as well. A big issue here is that there are so many recalls, campaigns, etc. going on, most of them involving software updates, because nowadays we fix cars with computers, not with tools anymore. The problem is the model currently is 1 bay, 1 technician. Okay, so you pay me 0.3 for a software update. It takes an hour and a half if nothing fails. So I am dead in my bay for an hour and a half. I myself am well over 150% efficient. So I'm not losing my own money. I'm losing, if Ann was my manager, I'm losing her money. I'm losing the dealership money. I think there's just this big disconnect of OEM expectancies versus real world.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, I appreciate you sharing your perspective and coming from your background. Mike, well, I'll go over to you. You guys kind of see the same out at your stores?
Well, we have a different dynamic because we don't call our labor times flat rate technicians anymore. The state of California adopted where we have to pay a base pay. So we call it a performance pay. Still same challenges. Marco's got a very fine point. What we've had to do is really, I've been in this business for a number of years. And when I first got into it, we didn't really care about bringing in customer pay or retail work. So we were primarily a warranty station for the manufacturer, which made it very difficult. But at that time, we got better times to do the warranty work. And then as time went on, again, to Marco's point, is that they kept nubbing the times. They pay us a retail rate, or at least what they felt was a retail rate, but they nubbed the time. So it impacted the technicians.
Sure.
If you were primarily a warranty station, it's very difficult to retain your senior technicians who naturally want to improve their income abilities. So I kind of went the opposite way, and we worked really hard to gain the retail aspect of the business. We have 400 retail agencies around our dealerships, and in order to offset that balance, that's how we're able to kind of subsidize the times that it's costing the technician by the retail times, because retail and warranty are completely different.
Sure. Okay. All right. Great. I appreciate the input. Robert, I want to, obviously your business model a little different from everybody else's. What's your take on all that?
Well, I'm a huge advocate actually of the flat rate system. However, that's only on the customer pay side, because on the warranty side, I seen all of the different things that would happen, whether it was the changing times that would happen, mid recall, as some have said. I agree with a couple of the points that Ann made. I agree with a couple of the points that Marco made. It's very difficult to navigate those waters when you have so many things that's happening in the business that you have to worry about. Technicians are going to leave because they don't, it's anything anymore. It's not even just the warranty aspect. It could be anything. It's personality conflicts. It's issues in the shop, between different technicians, between the management. I really liked the flat rate. I was at a European dealership, and they were pretty fair as far as what they charged the dealership or what they paid the dealership. But outside of that, I've heard all the horror stories. I've talked to other technicians that, are currently still in other brands, and it's kind of a bloodbath right now. And it doesn't surprise me that people are leaving and going into municipalities. They're going into city work. They're going into space. They're going into the aerospace industry, other brands that are electric, full electric. It's no wonder that, there's a drain coming out of the dealerships and people are going and moving to other brands.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point. Obviously at the end of the day, it usually starts with the money, and we're probably recruiting for about 100 rooftops right now, technicians. So we hear all of it. We hear all the complaints of the heck no, I'm not going there. I'm not doing this. And sometimes it's centered on this, but we hear a lot of stuff, air conditioning in shops. You'd be amazed at there's still a lot of shops out there that don't have air conditioning in insanely hot climates. And a lot of techs just aren't going to leave where they're at nice and comfy to go to that shop for equal pay or the same pay. So there are a lot of variables involved with it.
Exactly.
Sean, what's your take? I think amongst our group here, you're fixed ops. You oversee the largest number of dealerships in a mid to large size group like yourselves. Do you have the same struggles? Do you guys see the same thing or hear the same things?
We do, and I can reiterate what everybody on here says, especially what Andy says and everybody else, and Marco I've known for a while. Guys, even more than the time and losing techs, it's the morale killer. I mean, it just kills the morale of the shop. And more than anything, it makes the dispatching and the fairness of dispatching more important than ever. Because if you get a guy that you load full of it, especially to Marco's point, with all the flashes that we're doing, and we have 5 FCA stores, Guys, every car needs a flash. I almost guarantee you of some sort. And to his point, we are bay utilization at 120%. We have some people sharing bays. And to his point, if he's dead for an hour, 1.3 or 1.5 hours on a 0.3, now I'm 3 hours I'm losing on one car. So yeah, and what everybody said is correct. We're experiencing it. We live it. Joe, you and I have talked a lot about how to recruit and where the business comes from. And I don't know what the fix is. And we can get to that here in a little bit, where you have to offset it, where we can offset it. And that's what we've decided to do. But you have no choice but to offset it some way, because it's a constant getting beat on.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot outside your guys' control, and we'll get into it here in the next question of, what can you do? And you talked about fairness a minute ago, Sean. I want to kind of start with you. I'm going to flip-flop from the last order and come right back to you, give you the first crack at this one. Speaking specifically to when OEMs put out technical service bulletins, recalls, I know a lot of times you hear that's not fair, that's not accurate. Are you hearing that from your technicians? Do you get that a lot? Do you get that feeling within your service departments?
I think everybody gets it when it first comes out. I think the real killer, and whether it was whoever said the comment, when they change the recall midstream, makes it even worse. We have a Kia and a Hyundai franchise, and our Kia and Hyundai, as everybody knows, they obviously can't build an engine. Sorry, but it's true. Every one of them recall. And it went from 9 hours now down to 5. 9 hours was bad enough. Now it's 5 hours. Oh, we have a competitor, I won't mention names, in a sister town that physically won't do engine recalls on Kias now. They won't do it because the technicians just had enough. I mean, my Kia store right now is scheduling 32 days out because I'm full of engines at 5 hours an engine. And I love Marco. I know he's a great tech. And Robert, I know you've done this a long time. I don't care how good you are, guys. A lot of these cars have been sitting underneath trees for years. These things aren't just coming. They're not straight from the factory. They're not coming out because they want to. And it's tough. To answer your question, absolutely. The OEM recalls and then changing it midstream makes it extremely tough.
Gotcha. Robert, we could speak to that as well. And obviously, we wanted to talk about the question of whether or not they are fair. I think in most cases, you're going to hear from your techs or feel yourselves that they're not fair. Do you feel there's a way to circumvent that or anything you can do to overcome that? Sean, you talked about morale a lot, and I think a lot of that's the problem. You kill shop morale and kind of all spirals from there.
The sad part is the dealership usually ends up taking it on the chin.
Sure.
When I was in management, I used to actually try to make sure that I put a little bit of policy to any guy that was losing their rear end on a car to being fixed, because you can't afford to break that relationship. You have to show gratitude, and you have to pay people for what they do at the end of the day. And even if the manufacturer's not going to do it, someone has to pony up and step up and do it. And I can remember multiple times that we've had to do that when I was in management. You had to make sure you took care of your people. Yeah. Well, and to the point of what we're really talking about here as far as retention, techs leaving the industry and stuff, that's certainly one way to approach it, and probably the right way to approach it. There's no great answer here, like you said, Sean. I don't know that there's an immediate fix or something that we're going to just stumble upon here, but I've always said your employees are your first customer. You take care of your employees and good comes from there, but certainly somebody's going to be losing some money. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate it. Mike Weldon, what say you about service bulletin and recall times? I know, again, I forgot you reminded me that California does things a little different out there. Do you guys feel it as much? Does that affect you as much, or is it a little different because of the way you're set up with the kind of guaranteed or minimum wage, if you will?
Well, I think it impacts everybody in our industry. It doesn't matter where we're at in the country. And it's very hard to attract people where they know that they're not going to make rate based on their ability to our stores. That's why the independents are flourishing, in addition to other reasons. But and we really have to work hard at convincing people to come in. And when I think the topic that Sean said, you got to make sure, and then what Robert also said, take care of your employees, because they're going to take care of you. And we work really hard. We give them a real fair work mix. We make sure that they have the proper training. We do everything we can. We get in the trenches with them to find out they need to do to overcome the objections. Robert made a point of having a policy. I'll make up the difference where I feel it's necessary on a technician to make sure that, one, the job's done correctly, and two, is that we have that customer coming back and I retain the same technician so that I can perform additional work. And that's the biggest thing. I don't know how many, I know Sean's probably got a lot more technicians, but I've got 146 technicians. And if I lose one, that's a travesty, and I need 35 more if I can find them.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And Marco, I want to get over to you again. Firsthand experience. You've been doing this a long time. You know, you're pretty much at the top of your game, so to speak. Here, when you would see those service bulletins, those recalls come in, and you know the numbers don't match up, and you know it's probably going to end up in your lap. What's that feel like?
It's extremely demoting.
Yeah.
My daughter, who is 14, just had her first job interview with a grocery chain actually this weekend. They're going to pay her $12 an hour. That is $16 less than I'm making as a master certified and awarded technician. Really? My biggest problem with service bulletins is I'm supposed to just lay my hand on this car and go like, yeah, TSB, blah, 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 blah. They don't pay diagnosis.
Yeah.
They do not pay. How am I supposed to know that this TSB applies to this vehicle unless I brought it in, hooked up the battery maintainer, ran it for codes, went onto the online system, checked all the bulletins, etc. There goes at least 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the vehicle. Then I need to see if everything that's prescribed in the described in the bulletin applies to this car, including VIN ranges. One number off, it doesn't apply. Yes, I can make 0.2 more because it doesn't apply. But it's just that they do not pay diagnosis.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why am I doing this?
Right.
I can work in HVAC. I can work in electric. I can work in plumbing. I can work in a lot of different fields. My only problem is that I have such a strong work ethic. My work is my business card. Whether I make 0.2 or 22, it is my business card. I do not want this car to come back. FFV, absolutely. I want this car inspected. I want everything done on this car perfectly. If the customer decides no on customer pay items, that's up to them. But it will be documented. This car will not leave without it being as close to perfect as I can. However, and there's many of them like that, like me on LinkedIn. You can look at them. I'm sure even Robert has the same work ethic, especially around running his own business. His product is his business card. I have a lot of people that just come in, throw the key at me, and say like, "Hey, whatever it needs." But
Sure.
It takes time and effort and dedication. These TSBs, these dropping warranty labor times, whether it's a recall, a campaign, and anything, it is severely kicking everybody that's aspiring to be in this field and be successful. People like me, it's like they call us dinosaurs for a reason.
Sure.
We're going to be extinct.
Yeah.
And not just. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, you bring up a great point with the diag. My wife's uncle actually left the retail side of things to go do the maintenance for an entire ambulance fleet in a municipality in South Jersey. And we were talking over the weekend. That was the first thing he went to. He said, no good tech is just going to sit there, look at the code, and have the service bulletin or the recall and just assume that's what's wrong with it and start working on the car. That's not how it works.
Well, the biggest issue is what if there is no code and there still is a problem? That's where the dinosaur like me come. I still know what a dwell angle is. How many others do know? See, I see you laughing, Sean, but it's true. But the hands-on experience to be able to do that, the pride in your job, that is being knocked out of it. And it's not just at the fix op sides of dealerships. I'm starting to see this at the help side of the OEMs. The technical experts that are there to help the dealerships, they're starting to be faded out. They're starting to be pushed out. Now you have these kids in there that are great with computers, But if you talk about 16 and older, they go like, "Oh, I don't know."
Yep.
And how is this helping our customers? Because in the end, that's all what it is about. Our customers. They pay my mortgage. They pay the dealership's cost. It's the customers, and they are at the losing end of everything.
Sure.
And that is just saddening. That's saddening.
Absolutely. And what are your thoughts? You kind of hear the same or get the same vibe or feel the same thing from your technicians?
Oh, absolutely. So we have one thing that we are up against a lot are these audio units and the FACRA connectors and wiring harnesses. So they've come out with these bulletins and they're sinful. I mean, I'm not kidding. You have to replace a whole wiring harness. I have a couple of senior techs. They've been with us with the OEM for 20 plus years. The bulletin pays 7.2. It takes them uninterrupted 14 hours. And it's awful. And these are guys that have been in the business 20 plus years.
You're not talking a couple hours. I mean, that's twice as long.
It's twice as long because you're replacing a whole wiring harness. And the OEMs are not much help. You know, you call and you try to get help. And like, you know, Marco said, where's the diag? We don't get paid for diag because you've got to figure out exactly where's the loose connection. What connector do we need to replace? So you might have an hour and a half into diag and the warranty companies are so quick to red flag you if you want straight time. They punish you, so to say. So like everyone else, I try really hard. I put a lot to policy because I want to reward, you know, these guys because they're taking it on the chin for the customers. Sure. So it's hard, you know, it's a balancing act, and we do give back and give them some gravy work, as you call it. But you have to help them because they help us. So it's horrible. The recalls that have been coming out. And my question is, who sits at a desk and who comes up with this time? And how do they come up with this time? Because I'd like to see them do it. I don't, and you know, I get different answers. So I don't even know what engineer is sitting at a desk saying to replace a whole wiring harness, it pays 7 hours. Well, let me see you do it.
Sure.
So
it's certainly a problem. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's, you know, and we could go on for, you know, a couple hours here tonight. I want to keep it around 30 minutes. Last thing, I just want to go around the room and you know, throw it out there of any other issues related to warranty flat rate that you feel like are really hurting the shortage of technicians, causing technicians to leave, having a hard time keeping technicians, finding technicians, et cetera. Mike Weldon, I want to start with you.
Well, I think, you know, it's a trickle-up effect, I think, we're going to see, and the manufacturers are going to feel it in the end. I mean, we have a new need, these new EV vehicles coming in. And if we don't have a technical base, or we can't train the technicians, or they don't get excited about our industry, we're going to have our own, and I hate to use this word, pandemic in the automotive field, because we're not going to be able to fix cars because we don't have the people to fix cars, and we're not going to be able to attract people to our business and technicians. That's my biggest fear, because our company is made of people, and it takes people to run a business.
Yeah, I say it to every service manager I talk to when they're discussing their needs. You know, we'll find the Chrysler level 3 tech, your upper tier techs, but at the end of the day, if you're not working on that pipeline and working on the farm system, if you will, you're just kicking the can down the road. If you think we have a problem now, you know, give it 5-10 years, we're really going to have a problem. And then you mentioned EV vehicles. I mean, that's a whole other discussion there. So you're absolutely right, Mike.
Yeah, right now we have, well, I'm sure everybody on this panel has probably tracked it. There's a need for 700,000 technicians in the automotive industry. In the dealer business, there's a need for over 200,000 by the year 2023. And I don't know where we're going to find them. We're trying to make our own, but I still don't know where we're going to be able to stay up with it.
Marco, last thoughts, last words in regard to warranty flat rate and kind of the effect it has.
something that Anne just mentioned, it was pretty good about being a red flagged. If you do anything out of the, I've worked for several OEMs. I have to say that the, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention brands, but the Star is very lenient on the warranty pay. If you can substantiate, they will pay. I always kid that I got paid by the word. However, here comes the issue. I am perfectly good in using my hands to work on a car or using my hands on a keyboard and type the story. A lot of technicians aren't.
Sure.
It's almost like going to court. You have to justify and defend all your testing, all your findings, and eventually the repair that you made. A lot of guys are very, very good, extremely good in using their hands to repair and diagnose a vehicle. They absolutely are horrible in translating that on the keyboard.
That's a whole other skill set. Absolutely. Absolutely, right. Sir. Sean, last thoughts here in regard to any other issues, concerns we maybe didn't have time to get to in regard to flat rate.
No, I appreciate that. And Joe, you and I were speaking a little bit offline, guys. At the end of Q4 of 2020, going into 2021, one of my missions, one of my goals was to get labor rate increases. And you and I were talking offline. As a group out of 17 stores, with my labor rate increases the way they're going, and I've got 4 more to get approved, I'll be over $1 million in increases without adding one more thing. And the reason I throw that in there, to compensate for the warranty, I had one purpose in mind, to get around exactly what this panel is about, the warranty side of it. And the reason behind that is that we came up with an incentive program on warranty that will pay you up to $15 more a flat rate hour if you produce in a certain number of hours. At one way or the other, and again, as we talked, we all know what's happening. We're going to get audited eventually by it. I got it. But you need to check your state laws. I'm a solution-based guy. No, don't give me the problems. Let's come up with solutions. And the solution is I'm making the OEM pay more for it. So now, I've got one OEM store that I'm getting, I had a $70 rate increase. Guys, that allows me to pay that technician a whole lot more to do the same repair. Again, it goes back to morale. If they don't want to be there, they're not going to turn wrenches. Marco, you're right. It is a business card. It is their business card. It's their livelihood. They're not doing it because they like working in the hot area, the hot shops. They're doing it because that's what they love to do. You got to pay them. You got to pay them.
Love it. And I love being a solution guy, not a problem guy, Sean. That's beautiful. Well put. Robert, your thoughts, any last issues, concerns, just anything relating to flat rate and kind of the mess we found ourselves in here?
Sure thing, Joe. The one thing that kind of strikes me is the warranty side is a system. And anytime someone comes in and tries to manipulate a system to their good or to the detriment of themselves, something ultimately always happens. And honestly, the person that's really paying for it is the consumer. The consumer pays for everything in the end, always. It never changes, whether it's taxes, government, anything else that comes along. So what people are not thinking of is the unintended consequences of what's going on in the warranty system. Because how many technicians that should be working on a particular, like a B-level job in the shop, when the technicians know they're being manipulated, they go to their dispatcher and they push it off on the C-level guy or the guy that just showed up to the shop. And is that job getting done correctly? More than often, it's probably not.
Absolutely. That's a good point. Gene, are you waving us off here? Can I give Ann the floor for a minute or two?
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, all right. Ann, I want to let you get one, parting word in here in regard to warranty flat rate.
Yeah. So, I think that we have our work cut out for us. And I think that the more we continue to have these discussions and if we could get the OEMs involved in maybe some of these panels and discussions, because we all have a voice, but we all don't get a vote. So we need to get people involved that can vote for change and instill that change. So I'm all for the panels, all for us banding together. But at the end of the day, we need people that can have a vote and make a change. Because something's got to give or we're going to be in a whole lot of trouble, more so than we are now.
Sure. There's 3 pieces of the puzzle here, and we're kind of missing one at the moment, correct?
Right.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate the discussion. Like I said, I know we could keep going and keep going and keep going, but I appreciate the time you were able to give today.
And it sounds, Joe, like there is a consistent theme to Annie's point. If transformation doesn't happen, even to Mike's point earlier, then there's some trouble ahead. Mm-hmm. And so I agree with all of you that there's some opportunities for us. And we have to look to the manufacturers to get on board with this as well, to not continue with the Decepticon-like approach to things with bad times, and to really work toward transforming our business. But what a great discussion. It's clear that you guys are facing these things. You understand them really well. And I want to thank Sean Kingery and Ann Lister, Marco Zwanenberg, Mike Weldon, and Robert Stage for joining us today. And Joe, if anybody wants to reach out to AutoMax Recruiting, because obviously that's what this is all about. If we don't have people to fix the cars,
sure,
we can't do our job. We can't grow the business. We can't get anything done. We can't help our customers. How do they reach out to you?
Sure thing. Yeah, like I said, it's a big part of what we do, and we're always exploring new ways to find them and get them interested and help you guys out in any way possible. The ticker at the bottom has our website listed, automaxrecruitingandtraining.com, has our 800 number. Aside from that, we're all over social media. You can just give me a shout on LinkedIn, Facebook, anywhere, or reach out on the website or give us a call.
Great.
Joe Lockard, thank you so much. AutoMax Recruiting, thanks for sponsoring the panel. And panelists, you did a great job. We appreciate you very much.
Thanks, Gene.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Randy Brenckman with Ask the Expert is next. Stay with us.
Our next Transformers have seen it all. The latest in technology and ways to make it work in the real world. It's Ask the Experts with Randy Brenckman, followed by Fred Fordin of CDK Global, and the Tires and Alignment panel with David Boyle. Stay with us.
Introducing a new way to connect with service customers and capture them through the click. Meet Service Drive, a dynamic omni-channel video product powered by Drive, designed specifically for dealerships to match in-market auto shoppers to their inventory. Here's how it works. Through Service Drive's audience layering, it identifies every customer and their service needs, then delivers dynamic one-to-one personalized service incentives through a video message. Whether the customer is a lifetime customer, inactive customer, lost customer, Conquest location-based, or Conquest purchase-based, one video is dynamically delivered to many. A dealership can now save time and money by maximizing their ad spend through Service Drive. Measure what matters with real-time reporting and attribution powered by Helix. The power to connect with more service customers and capture them through the click. Discover Service Drive today and light up your service bay tomorrow.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable, everyone. Day 2 of Transformers, and we're so excited to have Randy Brenckman in our Ask the Expert segment back again. Randy, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
This has got to be one of the most anticipated segments of the entire event, both Gene and Randy. And I got to tell you, Randy Brenckman brings a whole lot to the table. And Randy, we got some questions from the audience today, so I'm going to just jump in if you're okay with that.
Please, let's go.
Okay. First question coming in out of Chicago. My general manager, this must be a service manager, is obsessed with increasing the number of customer pay repair orders per month. However, the number of ROs he claims is different from my numbers. Why? What am I missing, Randy Brenckman?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm kind of proud of the general manager trying to increase customer pay. I mean, that's where your loyalty is going to come with. That's where your retention is going to come through.
True.
But if I understand this correctly, he's talking about the difference in numbers. General managers generally don't go into the documentation in the service department. They use the financial statement. And the financial statement, when you go to the departmental where you have customer pay, warranty, internal, it says the number of ROs. Well, actually, that's really not correct. What that really is the number of ROs that have that type of work on it. For example, I have one customer that comes in for the entire month, just one customer. And they come in and they do a customer pay oil change and they do a warranty item. We finish it up. We finish the RO. The customer comes in, pays for the oil change, close the RO, set up the warranty receivable. Now in the departmental, it will show 2 ROs, not one, because it's one customer, but you have one customer pay and one warranty. Quite frankly, if I was at a Chevy dealer and I bought a truck and I ordered running boards, but they didn't have it when I picked up the truck and they did a due and deal, I said, don't worry, when I bring it in for my first service, I'll have them put on. So I come in for my first service, I pay for an oil change, I do a warranty adjustment, and they put the running boards on. It would say that you had 3 ROs. So the difference in numbers is probably the general manager looking at the financial statement and you looking at the actual information of the service department that says how many VIN numbers were in.
Okay. That makes a whole lot of sense, Randy. I like that. Good question.
So general managers don't chase after and count up customer pay and warranty and say, this is how many customers we had in to figure up other things, because you may be incorrect. You would only be correct if everything was a single line repair order, or only that type of work would be put on that repair order. So it's not the correct number.
Okay. All right. Good answer, Randy.
Thanks.
Question coming out of Florida. My owner is pressing me for me to raise my average effective labor rate. No matter what I do, I cannot seem to move the number. Randy, help.
Okay. Wow, this could be a whole segment right here, Ted. Effective labor rate. It's an average. Okay. Why? If I was this service manager, I'd say, please explain to me what we are trying to accomplish. Did you just come back from a 20 group? And that key column, you weren't the highest, so you said you're going to bring it up. Are you in a dealer group where your competition general managers are higher than you and you're trying to beat them? Well, keep in mind, if you're a Toyota store, you're never going to have the same effective labor rate as a Chrysler or a General Motors store because of the type of work you do. Are you just trying to raise gross? Or are you concerned about a warranty audit coming up? So that you're trying to raise your warranty rate based on what you do. If it's the latter, if you're concerned about raising your warranty rate, the only thing you can really do there is just not discount, period, not discount. Now, going back to this person in Florida says, I'm trying to raise it, but I can't get there. First thing you got to do is look at discounts. And when you look at discounts, you have to ask the question, who's doing the discounting? Is it your advisors discounting, or is it your coupon? Think about it for just a minute. You've got a coupon to bring in defectors and everything. You lower the price, but you don't shave the tech time. You're the one lowering the effective labor rate. And the more successful you are with that, this average is going down, but hopefully line 2 of the financial statement's going up. You're getting a lot more customers in, getting a lot more gross profit. You're selling more parts, and it just goes on and on and on. So it's kind of like, what are you after here? Keep in mind, and you've always heard me say this before, if you really want to raise your effective labor rate, close on Saturdays, tell new customers to stay away for 4 or 5 years, overcharge anybody else who dares to come see you, don't sell tires, and don't ever do a multi-point inspection, you'll be successful. Because all of those bring in maintenance, and maintenance is what's going to bring that average down.
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense, Randy. Can I ask you another question here?
Absolutely.
Okay, question out of Georgia. I am having difficulty with customers bringing their vehicle to us with an aftermarket extended service agreement, VSA company, which is hard to deal with. Any advice?
Wow. Yeah, but you're probably not going to like it, and I'm probably going to cause a lot of controversy here.
Well, go ahead.
Some extended service contract companies, and for our audience, they're shaking their heads right now, are difficult. You feel like you're on the phone for an hour and 45 minutes on hold, and then it disconnects and you have to start all over again. And this takes a tremendous amount of time. Now, you've got to leave emotion out of this and go with reality. If you have a particular company that's just a disaster, it's always a disaster. When your customer comes to your dealership, explain to them, we have a lot of trouble with this particular warranty company. Here's what we will do. We will make one attempt, or we'll make 2 attempts to get in touch with them and do this. Explain to them what happens with dignity. Don't badmouth them, but say, I don't know why, but this is just what happens. We may have to put the emphasis on you. You contact them and get them approved. Maybe we have to do the work and you pay for it and then get reimbursed. I don't know. But this is a problem, especially if you're limited personnel and your advisors are trying to do their job and they're the ones having to get approval. And everybody knows there are some companies that are very difficult. Here's what I would suggest. Okay. Before you do this, run it by your general manager. Don't be a maverick and have somebody call and say, hey, this is what my service manager is telling me, and you as a general manager are blindsided by this. Have a talk with your general manager or owner, explain the dilemma, explain what you'd like to do, get their blessings before you try this.
Randy Brenckman, moving like a machine. I got another question out of Texas.
I've been there. I've done that on that one. It's aggravating.
Okay, Randy, question out of Texas for you. How can I reduce my unapplied time?
Sell hours. Unapplied time. You paid a tech and you never collected from a guest. Why? The question was, how I can lower it, right?
Reduce my unapplied time.
First thing, you've got to know what's in there. Run the schedule and look at every single thing in there in unapplied time. Find out what's in there. You could literally have a shop foreman that doesn't turn hours in your unapplied time. Then subschedule it. If your unapplied time is 1, 2, 3, 4, then that particular individual or individuals will be 1, 2, 3, 4A, 1, 2, 3, 4B, 1, 2, 3, 4C. Like if you're in California, overtime could be B, rest and relaxation could be C, and on and on and on. Do it for your hourly techs and for your flat rate techs, if you will. You first have to know what's there if you're going to make any motion on it at all. Now, if you have guaranteed techs where they're paid a guarantee, California, for example, does these. I know they're in Texas, but California, if you think about it from academia, they don't have flat rate techs. They have they have hourly techs with a flat rate accelerator. So if I have 10 techs and I'm the service manager, literally, I've got 80 hours worth of unapplied time on my drive in because they're all going to get their 8 hours. So first, sell the time. Number 2, make sure that you are at least, I'd shoot for 33, 35% success rate on same day selling with your multi-point inspections. Obviously, that's giving you some time. But your dispatch agent needs to know the program. For example, I've got 2 technicians. That's all I have. One's turned 8 hours and the other's turned 7. You have 1 more hour to go. You got to give it to the guy at 7 hours. Otherwise, you're double paying. So you have to understand, not only do I have to dispatch the number of hours, but I've got to dispatch it equally in order for it not to be unapplied time. Now, think about this, and this is going to screw up every other percentage. You're in California, and you've got a technician that's turned 7 hours. You need to get him 1 more hour. And let's say this technician makes $35 an hour. Do you realize mathematically it's better to sell an hour for $36 and make $1? Forget the hidden paycheck. Otherwise, you're going to pay him $28. So you're better off not having that $28 loss and instead have a $1 gain. Now, that's going to take some time to wrap your head around that one, but mathematically, it actually works. So, in summary, identify it first. Do you have techs that aren't turning 8 hours a day? And if not, why not? Do you have people that are never going to turn it and they're always going to be in there? So do the research first and then you'll figure out, you'll see where it is.
Okay. Question out of Ohio, Randy. How many repair orders should an advisor write in a day? We've heard that one before.
Yeah, well, let's go here. Kind of depends on what franchise you are.
Okay,
If you write, let's just say you write 17 a day just for a number. Do you want to write 17 oil changes or do you want to write 17 engine jobs? So that changes the whole dynamic. First of all, I would just go with hours. And we've had this discussion before. For my money, every advisor, average, you've got some that are really good and some that aren't. You've got salespeople that can sell 25 cars a month and some that can sell 8. I mean, can't use that as the Bible. But the average advisor should sell 30 hours a day. So if you said 15, you'd have to be at 2 hours per RO. And in our industry right now, that might be a little rich for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask me, I'd say 30 hours and shoot for around 17. That's what I would go for a quick answer. That'd be a great place to get started. Much more. Now, if you're cashiering, you can't do as many and the type of work and things of this nature. So if I could maybe back up a little bit, why don't you look at the quality of the ROs they're writing first before how many?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are they all single line repair orders? Or are they selling off the multi-point inspections? And how many hours are they getting? I think that's where I'd go for first. But a quick number, 30 hours and 17.
Okay, Randy, last question.
Yes.
No matter how hard I try, my customer pay gross profit retention percentage either remains the same or goes down. What is happening? Question is out of Michigan.
My first statement would be, thank you, congratulations. What this is telling me is you're doing a lot of maintenance, unless you're discounting. If you're not discounting, then you've got a more expensive tech doing the lighter jobs. Well, great. I just mentioned a second ago, if you were in California or you had a guaranteed technician and you discounted the fire out of it to cover your unapplied time, the gross profit percentage went completely out of whack on something of that nature. So again, if I'm looking for my percentage, first thing I would look at is discounts. It's going to be one or two things. It's going to be the cost of labor or the discount or the price you charge. It's going to be one or the other. And if you're not discounting, seems to me it's probably going to be a lot of maintenance work. Do a quick work mix. Hopefully you're 70% plus maintenance. If you are, then you've got retention. It's not a bad thing. Keep in mind, it's going to get worse in 5 years. If all of your techs stay with you, they're probably going to get a raise. And I don't know if your labor rate or what you charge is going to surpass that. So it's just the way it is. Just the way it is. I got a lot of averages today. Don't concentrate on the averages until you've sold all the hours. Don't concentrate on the averages until you sell all the hours. If I'm a technician and I work an 8-hour day, your goal for me is 10 hours. If I have 12 techs, your shop is 120 hours. Go with that metric first. That would be my advice.
We've got a frequent contributor here on the Roundtable. Name is Tully Williams. Can I share that advice with him about the hours? Because I think
yeah, he may listen to you on that one, right? I love Tully for that. I absolutely love him for that.
Yeah, it's a lot to love. Now, Randy, you
are
all
the scary part about it is I hate to use logic here, but it works because you're after the inventory. 90% of all your problems in a dealership are found in an inventory, and 90% of your solutions are found in an inventory 100% of the time.
Now, Randy, you are all over the country doing training. I spoke with you recently. You were at a good friend of ours, stores, Doug Eero, over at Longo Toyota.
Love those guys.
You train big stores, medium stores, small stores, and you have an online program. If our audience wants to reach out to you to get some advice and maybe some consultation and some implementation for their dealership, what's the best way for them to do that?
Call me. I'm in Arizona, so it's a 703 number because I kept my Virginia number from NADA when I worked there. Just call me or email me at randy@randybrenckman.com. I'd love to talk to you. Remember one thing, if for some reason I don't pick up, like I'm talking to you now or something of that nature, you've got to leave me your cell number. Please do not leave me your dealership number because I would rather stick a hot fork in my eye than go through your gatekeeper to say, well, they're in a meeting. They just called me. They're not that important. Come on. So just leave me your cell number. I'll be glad to call you. Please.
Our resident expert, Randy Brenckman from Randy Brenckman Solutions, here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thanks, guys. All the best to everybody. Thank you very much.
Fun stuff, Randy. And it's always a great segment. And folks, we are just getting started. We're just scratching the surface on day 2 of Transformers at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Fred Fordin is the Vice President of DMS and Related Solutions at CDK Global and a very popular person here at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Fred, I want to welcome you back to the event.
Thank you, Ted. Always good to be here and looking forward to the future.
That's right. And it's a very bright future ahead. And what Fred and I thought we would do today is something a little different and talk about the charity that we're behind. It's the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And over the next 3 events, the Fixed Ops Roundtable is raising $100,000 to support that charity. And Fred and I have some personal stories we'd like to share with you because we both have been afflicted with leukemia and had a diagnosis in the past. And, it's personal to both of us. So, Fred, I appreciate you being here today and talking about this.
But yeah, Ted, and it's a unique opportunity that you and I have to share a message with our brethren in the industry, and so I think this is a really great subject for us today. We talk about the car business all the time. This is way bigger than what we do for a living.
Yeah. When did you first get diagnosed? How did that come about? What led up to that? And tell us a little bit about that story.
So back in 2014, ASR Pro had me on the road daily. I was sometimes doing 6-8 flights a week, and through that winter, I kept getting colds. I just kept getting a cold, and I had a Duke University urgent care center right down the block from my house, and so that was where I'd go. And by the time I went for my 3rd visit in 4 months, the doctor was annoyed with me. She said, "You've got a cold. You need to stop this." And she didn't tell me this up front, but after the fact, she told me. She drew blood just to prove to me that there was nothing wrong. And she came back in the room and she said, I need to take a second sample. There was something wrong with the first sample. I didn't think anything of it. She took the second sample, and when she walked back in the room, she said, "Mr. Fordin, I want you to go from here straight to Big Duke," meaning the main hospital in Durham. Mm-hmm. And I said, she said, "Do you understand what I'm saying to you?" I said, "Well, if what you're saying to me is what I think you're saying to me, you're telling me that I'm going to see an oncologist." And she said, "That's right." So I drove over to Duke. I was there 30 minutes later. The emergency room was full of people, and I walked in like nothing's wrong. I had just worked out 2 hours earlier, sure. And they rushed me through the emergency room like there was some urgent thing going on. The triage nurse looked at the chart, looked at me, looked at the chart, and said, "Are you Mr. Fordin?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you know why you're here?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I thought you'd be coming in on a stretcher with this count." So, it turned out, they let me know that I had leukemia, and that became the longest 8 days of my life, because they can't tell you what kind of leukemia just from that blood test. They just know you have it, right? So, they kept me there. They checked me in. The next morning, they drew bone marrow and sent me home and told me, "We'll be back to you in 8 days." And, I left very positive, believing, everything was going to be okay. The morning of that 8th day, before we went back to the hospital, my wife and I woke up, we made eye contact, and the both of us started to cry, because we knew it was this was going to be a big day. This was going to be life-changing. And luckily for me, it turned out to be a chronic leukemia versus an acute leukemia,
right.
Much like yours. And so it became, what can you live with versus you're going to die. And so the conversation became very different.
A lot of people don't know that there are many types of leukemia. And just to go back to what you just mentioned, the acute versus the chronic. You and I have the chronic versions. And if you don't mind, Fred, which leukemia do you have?
I have a chronic myelogic leukemia, CML.
Okay, CML. And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's basically 25 years ago that would be a death sentence. 25 years ago, they had no cure for that. They had no treatment for it other than start doing all of the things that they do with acute forms of leukemia, where you're fighting a life and death situation immediately. A doctor at Harvard, the story was explained to me that a doctor at Harvard had come up with a theory, and Harvard didn't want to back the exploration of that theory. So the guy went to the University of Oregon, and within 1 year, he basically developed a treatment, not a cure. So those of us that have chronic forms of leukemia are never cured.
Right.
We're never, we live in remission. We don't live in a cure.
That's
and so, I take chemotherapy pills, every night before bed. And there are side effects to that, but they're livable side effects. They're things that when you think about what could have been, you realize I'm blessed, I'm very, very fortunate.
Yeah. And again, it's, my story is similar to yours. My diagnosis is not that far apart from yours when that happened. I was getting a haircut and I was in the, with the beautician, and she was cutting my hair, and I've been cutting my hair for years and years. And she said, Ted, what's that lump on your neck? And I said, what lump? And that's what started it, Fred. And I went to my doctor, and much like you, they kind of blew it off and said, it's nothing serious. Okay, we'll take some tests. And I probably came back 3 or 4 times and took blood, and he couldn't figure out what was wrong, because the standard tests really couldn't tell the illness that I had at the time. And I felt great. Okay, so, and I'm like you, I'm on an airplane every week, going somewhere, doing stuff, and busy and training, and really would have no time for this. And I can't imagine that could be anything wrong. So finally, my primary care physician sent me to the oncologist, and he said, they're going to do some more testing there, and we got to find out what's going on with you. And this now was maybe 3-4 months later, right? So it was around Labor Day of that year, and I went in to see that doctor, and they drew blood. They took a preliminary test, which I think they do with everybody. It wasn't the big test yet. That was coming later that day, actually. And I went into the exam room to wait for the doctor. They weighed me, and they took my height and all that. And I'm in the exam room, Fred, right? And I've got the gown on and the whole thing. And the doctor comes into the exam room, and he says, Mr. Ings. I said, yes. He says, would you come with me? And I said, of course. Where are we going? He goes, come into my office. And Fred, I knew right then and there that was not a good sign when the doctor brings you into his office and closes the door and wants to talk to you. And he said, look, we need to run some more tests, which I'd like to do today. We won't get the results back, like you said, for about a week. But my theory is that you may have a form of leukemia. And Fred, I was shocked. I'm like, me? Leukemia? There's no way that could possibly be, right? And he said, well, we have to do the tests, and we have to run everything. And like you said, that was a tough week, coming back 7-8 days later, right? Yep. And but I was braced at that point, because I had done now some research on it. And when I went in, they gave me the word. He told me what it was for sure. And Fred, I still didn't believe it. I wanted to see all the raw data, with all the blood work that they did. And I went out and I got a second opinion, and so on and so forth. And I realized, however, from what he told me, he said, look, this is not a death sentence. This is a chronic situation, and you're going to be treated for it. And he goes, I have patients who were diagnosed with me 25 years ago who are alive and well today. So he said, it's not like it was, some time ago. Like you said, that diagnosis many years ago would have been a death sentence. So I've been able to live with it and manage it and, knock wood, keep it in check. I know there's probably some tough days coming somewhere down the road right ahead, but I'm very fortunate and very blessed. And it's given me a new perspective on life and appreciation of things that we have that we typically take for granted.
Yeah, and that's the big one, right? Is all of a sudden you do look at life very, very differently. That 8 days taught me a huge lesson. Because you don't know, right? And we don't live life ordinarily thinking you don't know what tomorrow brings. You plan and you execute and you do all the things you do because of the assumption that life's just going to go on. But then when that day comes and you think, wow, life may not be going on, and you live in that for a week, even trying to stay positive, there's a reality check in there that you have to deal with. And it was a tough reality. And for me, I'm still very badly affected when I see someone who ends up with an acute leukemia and they have to fight this life or death battle. It's, there's kind of the question of, why me? Why did I get lucky? Right after I was diagnosed, friends of mine, a couple who I knew for years, their daughter was a first-year med student at Wake Forest, and she got acute leukemia. She lasted 6 weeks, and this poor 21-year-old kid passed away. And you sit and you become so grateful that for the little gifts you're given, and all of a sudden, wow, there's this one gigantic gift called I get tomorrow. And other people aren't so lucky, and so it's it's a constant it's a constant life of gratitude.
There's a phrase, Fred, that I live by now, and it's I think very appropriate. It's called "act while the choice is still yours." And while you can get up and do things and run and start a business and raise a family and do all the things that that we are doing, do it now, because you don't know what tomorrow will bring. But today is a gift. And going back many years ago, when I was a salesperson in my early 20s on the floor selling Fords, there was another salesperson. He was older than me, and he had a son that was battling leukemia. And I didn't know anything, about it back then. And he apparently had an acute form. And same thing, about 20 years old. And, he died very quickly, young boy. And I remember going to the wake and going to the funeral. And that was a very emotional thing. So, when I heard leukemia, the first thing that entered my mind is thoughts like that. But the chronic forms are very survivable. And Jim Brewer, who we had on the show yesterday from the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, told us about this event, Light the Night, how when they have this event and they light the different candles and different lights, what they mean for survivors and people who currently have the disease and family of the disease. It's just, a really brilliant way to celebrate the research that they're doing. So, we're looking very much forward to these next couple events and getting behind, this great cause. And
Gene's going to love that you said light the nights and my lighting changed and all the colors changed. Gene's going to absolutely love that.
Well, yeah, he's the producer, so he's busy transforming things in the background, Fred. So
there we go.
Realize all the stuff that he's doing. But actually, Gene brings so much to this event. He's really raised the caliber of the Fixed Ops Roundtable, and with speakers, experts such as yourself, and with what he's done on the production side. But about a year ago, he and I decided that we would support a charity, and give to it ourselves out of our pocket as well. And, the first one that we did, we had Jay Leno earlier this year. And thank you, by the way, for CDK for your support of that. And now we're taking it to a new level with Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So, Fred, thank you for for sharing your story today.
My pleasure, Ted. Thank you.
Great. So, Gene, here we are, 2 survivors, and we've proved that we can make it work and still earn a living and still feel good about it. So
that's right. And both of you, and especially Fred, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. And folks, now is a great time to consider giving to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. We have a special fundraising page set up just for the Fixed Ops Roundtable. In fact, it's called For LLS Fundraising page. We'll put that information up on the screen for you. Folks, we really appreciate it. All 3 of us are cancer survivors. I happen to be a prostate cancer survivor. So it's such an important thing to support. And again, Fred, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your story, and Ted for sharing yours as well. The Tire and Alignment panel, sponsored by Tire Profiles, is next on the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Well, Gene, that was amazing. And we are so fortunate to have back with us here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable, one of the leaders in the industry, David Boyle, who is the president and CEO of Tire Profiles. Dave, welcome back to the event.
Thanks, Ted. It's great to be here. We've done this a few times before, haven't we?
You are the king of tires, my friend. So you have earned that reputation. And, throughout the event, there's been so many references to tires. And, so I really couldn't wait for this panel to come up. And there's a lot to be said. And you've got some great talent here. So with that, I'm going to let you introduce the folks who are here.
Perfect. Thanks, Gene. I don't mind being called the king of tires. I would rather be known as the guy that's the king of helping dealers make more profit. But that's our goal here at Tire Profiles. And we certainly appreciate this opportunity to participate in these events that you put on. You and Gene do a great job, Ted, and we really do appreciate it. And I am honored, actually, to have 4 gentlemen with me today that got a lot of experience in this industry, and I am very much looking forward to their insights on some questions that I'm going to pose for these guys. So give me a couple of minutes to just introduce the folks. We've got Mr. Scott Gregg, who's a fixed ops director at Tucson Subaru. Welcome, Scott. Good to have you with us. First time participant, I think. So great to have you here.
Right.
We also have Mr. Christian Ugarte, who is the fixed ops director for the BMW in the beautiful city of El Paso, Texas. Another first time participant. Christian, thank you for doing this. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
This guy's getting old hat at this. Mr. Justin Pomeroy, the VP of Fixed Operations for the Foundation Auto Group, my friend. We've only known each other about a year, but I think we've become good friends, and I really appreciate you doing this for me. I know I can always call on you, and I really appreciate your insights in this. You're doing some fantastic things with the Foundation Group, and appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us again.
Pleasure to be on it. Thank you guys for having me.
Great stuff. And last and not least, the founder, along with Ted, of the Fixed Ops Roundtable and the Fixed Ops guru himself, Mr. Mike Vogel. Keeps trying to retire and get out of this industry, but we keep sucking him back in because he's just got so much knowledge. So, Mike, once again, thank you. You've been you're a real good friend to me over the last year, helping me with my business and helping me get TPI growing. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate your time today.
Great to be here. Great to be on a solid panel of industry experts, and looking forward to what everybody has to offer.
Perfect. Well, let's jump into it, guys. So I've got a couple of questions. I've got three, and hopefully we'll have time at the end for the third. That will be sort of our lightning round. The topic today is going to be about tires and alignments. It's near and dear to my heart. That's obviously what my company does, and but I really want to get some insight from you guys on a couple of specific topics. The first one I want to talk about is tires and retention, specifically the retention side of tires. People in the industry have heard me talk about this forever. But I'd like to hear your guys' sort of perspective on this. There's some industry data that I would like to give you guys before we get started. You know, the research that's out there's several NADA's done the research. The tire industry has done the research, and they show that new car dealers have somewhere between 6 and 10% market share of the replacement tire market, which is not great. And additional research that NADA has shows that the tire replacement is in fact the number one defection point for dealers. So if these things are true, if it is the number one defection point and dealers are not very good at selling tires, or not doing well at selling tires, why is this the case? What do we need to do differently to take advantage of the retention aspect that comes along with selling tires? And Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you first to get your insights on it.
Hi. Well, the first thing that dealers need to do is recommend tires to customers. I mean, you got to do a good walk around, do a good multi-point inspection, and get that business. If we're only retaining 6 to 10% of that business, and then 78% of those people might defect, that's not good numbers at all for the dealers. So do a good walk, have the advisors train them to do a good walk around. The Groove Love that you offer, that's a great tool for it. Traction is another great tool. And all of these things will help you sell more tires. But the main thing is you got to just offer them to them. I mean, almost 80% of the people will buy them if you just offer and let them know that they need tires. And also talk to them about it as you're going along. You know, tell them your tires are good, but you're going to need them on your next oil change so they can prepare for it. That's a good setup. You know, you got to look at that too. You got to lay the groundwork to sell the tires when it's time, when they do actually need them. It's a big expense for a lot of people, and they like to be able to plan for it. And then when it's time to sell them, it's an easy, you know, they're already ready for it. I'm here to get my tires. Let's go. Let's get them. You got to keep them in stock. You got to have the tires. If you sell them, you got to be able to put them on. They don't want to wait for a day or two to get tires. So that's another thing. You got to have a good inventory. All of that stuff will add up to many, many more tire sales.
So. Yeah. It's, you know, I read this statistic somewhere. I'm not sure where, you know, other than insurance and fuel, tires will be probably the next largest expense that the consumer will have over the ownership of the vehicle. And if the first time we start talking about tires is when they need them, that's, I think, one of our biggest problems, right? We spring it on them when they have no really ability to prepare for it. And it can be a fairly major expense, especially on certain model cars. In particular, and I was a former BMW driver not that long ago, Christian, and I think I put a set of tires with run flats on my 5 Series BMW, and I think it was almost $2,000 by the time I got out of there. And that's a lot of money. And if we don't do what Scott said and sort of prep people for that, it can be a bit of a shock and tough to do. So what are some of your thoughts on this, Christian?
How are you? Thanks for having me again. And as Scott was saying, the walk around is one of the key things over here with my advisors and training and teaching the customers also what to expect from the tires life. You know, one of the great things for us, it's been a game changer. It's been the Groove Glove. You know, we have the Groove Glove, and it's showing the customers really, because they like to see the green, yellow, and red. You know, they understand that better than us just telling them, hey, you know, you're at 430 seconds, 330 seconds. It's something visual for them. It's a lot better. And for us, like I said, it's a game changer. Now, we're going to go with the text messages, showing the videos and all that, because customers need to be educated as well on why do they need the tires, not just because we just say it as a recommendation. Also, they need to understand it why. You know, that's one of the most important things that I can have to say. And yes, tires are very expensive. If we offer options, financing, ways to prepare themselves for the future on the next oil change, which for us is about a year roughly, you know, they'll be ready for it.
Yeah, it's you know, they say about tires, they're like sort of death and taxes, right? They're inevitable. They're one of the few things that you can't just put off forever, right, on a car, because you're eventually going to have problems. And another statistic that someone showed me the other day was, I think, from AAA, that showed the number of, actually no, it was NHTSA, the percentage of vehicle accidents where the root cause was some sort of a tire failure was a staggering number. And I'm not going to quote it because I don't remember the statistics, but it was a staggering number, I remember, where either a catastrophic blowout of failure or not being able to stop properly because there was no tread left on the tire or whatever was the root cause of the accident, which is obviously something that is a safety related thing that we need to be talking about more and more with our customers. Justin, you've got a bit of a different perspective from this because you've got, how many stores does the foundation have now?
We're at 23, sir, with probably another 20 to close this year. If all things go as planned, I don't know how, but I'm optimistic all the same. To go to what you said, doing our due diligence to make sure we educate the consumer that even though mom and dad have gone to Dealer Track or Midas or wherever it is the past 15 years, and they kind of you seem to follow where animals of habit, making sure that they're aware that the dealer has become competitive in this market, making sure that they know that. I mean, the dealership can not only service your vehicle, but we are highly competitive in tire sales, and that why spend the time to go to a discount or something like that when you're already here for your oil changes? Time is everything now to people. It's more important than money because it is exactly what, that. And so making sure that we do our due diligence to make sure that they know that we are competitive in the marketplace, that we do have easy financing, that you can purchase these tires. And I think a lot of our stores, I'll say, have Sunbit, being the first household decision on that vehicle where we're purchasing a $2,000 or $3,000 set of tires. That's usually something that's discussed by wife, husband, and whoever else is in the home. So having that ease of finance with a credit card or Sunbit, buy here, pay later, same as cash, makes that decision a little bit easier for them to choose you. The policies that can be put on those tires by the OEs, the road hazards and the towing assistance and so on and so forth. All those things have to be built and brought to the table and show the value has to be built and why you should do it here. And, we haven't done that in a long time, and it's, we don't have the option to not.
The dealers really do have a great value proposition in all of this, really. I mean, they really do. I mean, it's and like you said, it wasn't always the case that the dealers were competitively priced, but they're very competitively priced now. I had a personal experience just last week. I had to take my wife's Explorer in for a set of tires, went to the local Ford dealer here that I do business with. And, I was going to buy the tires from there regardless, but I thought, while I was waiting to get the tires put on, I looked up a set of tires from NTB. There's one 2 blocks down, and the dealer was $1 more than NTB. And then I looked around this waiting room that I was sitting in, having a cappuccino, and I thought, well, would I rather be sitting here for $1 more or sitting in the lounge with 15-year-old magazines down at NTB? So we don't, I think, do enough of selling the value that we have, whether it be loaner cars or just our facility, and all that stuff, combined with the fact that we're competitively priced now. This is our business to go get, and I know you know that. And I think it's just, we need to do a better job of educating the customers what our offer is. Mr. Vogel, now you've heard all of this. Tell us something we haven't heard.
Well, that's what I'm going to try to do, for sure. So I think everybody has covered pretty thoroughly the customer aspect of earning their business. Let's look at it from the dealership side. I think for too long, for decades, many have heard me talk about this. We put a lot of focus on gross profit percentages and effective labor rate. And while those have their place in the dealership world, in certain areas they don't. For instance, oil changes. We've done oil changes competitively with the market to keep customers coming in for decades. Why don't we treat tires the same way? If you look at the variable side of the business, how long has the new car department given away loss leader cars or given away cars to compete with their closest dealership? Happens all the time, every day, pretty much every dealership. So let's look at the tires as something that's necessary. We know it's a huge defection point. So let's not worry about the gross that we're not going to make today on the tires. Let's look at the gross that we're going to lose if we let that customer leave and buy tires elsewhere. And we all know that, let's say a customer's come in and average twice a year. Okay, let's say you get that customer to come back to you for an additional 5 years. That's 10 visits. How much are those 10 visits worth to you in gross profit if they don't defect? So don't be shallow-minded. Don't look at the tires as I'm only going to make $5 a tire or $2 a tire or whatever that number might be. Let's look at it as I've got a customer in front of me that needs tires. What do I need to do to sell those tires today and keep them from defecting? That's the key item for me for growing the business.
Yeah, right on the nail. The head of the nail is usually, Mike. I mean, I'll add one more thing. The service retention is obviously big money over the life of the vehicle. And if we lose them, like you said, we lose all that future revenue. But I published a white paper on this not long ago that talked about the next step in the process, which is the likelihood of the customer buying another vehicle from you if they're still servicing from you versus not. And that data is out there. It wasn't my data. I think it was actually Cox Automotive's data. And the numbers are staggering. It's like 75% down to 35%. They're 75% likely to buy another car if in years 3, 4, and 5 they're still servicing with you versus 25 to 30% if they're not. And a lot of GMs out there, and I want them all to listen to this. A lot of GMs out there think, we don't make a lot of money on tires, and it's a pain in the butt to do. This is why, from a dealership holistic standpoint, you need to be getting serious about tires. Is it will help you sell that next car, which is what all our GMs really care about, right? So right on the head of the nail as usual, Mike. Thanks, Mike. I want to turn to alignments now, right after a short break. Did you know that on average, 3 customers defect from your dealership every day? You may not see it, but you can stop it. Industry data shows that 91% of your customers are not buying tires from you. They are defecting to aftermarket shops, and fewer than 20% of these customers will ever come back to you for any other purchases. You sell a new vehicle hoping to feed your service department, but when you don't sell them tires, this plan falls apart, and you lose out on all of that high-dollar service work as the vehicle ages.
On the bright side, customers who have visited your service department in the last 12 months are 71% likely to buy another vehicle from you. But customers who have defected and haven't visited recently are only 35% likely to buy another vehicle from you. By not capturing the tire sale and allowing customers to defect, it's costing you both new vehicle sales and contributing to higher marketing costs to try to get them to come back and buy from you again. So how do you sell more tires? It starts with changing the way your service department approaches the sale. And Traction, the tire and retention tool from Tire Profiles, helps you do just that. Using our state-of-the-art technology to measure and communicate tire needs to the consumer, you increase trust and transparency, which results in higher sales. The tool is easy for you and your customers to use. Customers drive in, then Traction measures their tires and sends them a text with their personalized tire health report. Being proactive will ensure you keep service loyalty high and help drive that next vehicle purchase. Traction is a win-win-win. You sell more service work, you sell more vehicles, and you have happier, more loyal customers. Your dealership and your customers deserve Traction. Reach out today to get started.
Welcome back, everybody. As I said before the break, I want to turn our discussion to alignments now. Mike, you coined a saying that I've stolen, and I probably owe you some royalty payments for this, but you coined a saying that alignments are today's revenue, tires are tomorrow's revenue, which is the connection of retention and future visits and all that stuff. There's a huge opportunity for dealers to make money today by selling more alignments. The data that we've got, my company, Tire Profiles, we've scanned close to 30 million vehicles in the last 7 years now. It's a lot of data. And that data now tells us that between 36 and 40% of the vehicles on the road today need an alignment. So what I tell dealers all the time is, listen, if you want to know what your alignment opportunity is, take your RO count, multiply it by 35%. That's how many alignments you could be doing every day. The problem is that most dealers are only capturing about 10% of that opportunity. And that is big gross flowing right out the door. What do we need to do differently to be better at selling alignments? And Mike, I'm going to start with you this time, and we'll go in reverse order.
So I think it all starts at the vehicle check-in, and it goes back to what everybody on the panel has discussed. The consistency on each visit, being able to talk about the tires, but also talk about the wear patterns. So we assume that the customers will tell us if they have a pulling problem, but the reality is that's probably not going to happen. How many customers really inspect their tires on a regular basis for unusual wear? How many customers drive their car every single day, God knows how many miles per day, but don't realize that the car's got an alignment issue? And lastly, we know that our roadways throughout the United States are in awful condition in most every city, especially bigger cities. So, the opportunity is there. And if you want to retain customers, not only is it about tires, but how about putting their best interest at heart? If we can do an alignment on a regular basis when it's needed, how much more wear can we get out of those existing tires? And by doing so, you're saving your customers some money.
Exactly.
So there's a huge amount of benefits to doing it, and doing it in front of the customers, showing them, is a lot better than just selling them. So I think that's going to be the key item: showing, letting them understand the reasoning why their tires are wearing like that, and what the benefits are for doing the alignment, and how you're saving them money.
Yep. Perfect. Justin, rumor has it that before you became the big boss, you ran one of the most profitable, if not the most profitable, Ford quick lanes in the nation. And I know that you were killing it with tires and alignments back when you were, right in service essentially and dealing directly with customers. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about what your thoughts are on selling alignments.
It goes with just anything else, if I'm doing a coolant repair, I probably want to pair that with a coolant exchange. And if I'm replacing my tires, I probably want to align it to protect my investment, right? Not only is it good to do that at the time of the purchase of the tires, but like like Mike said, once a year or every 30,000, it's just as much of an interval as the next. Making sure the customer is aware that, if we don't do this alignment, these are the possible repercussions, the possible short life of your tire if it's not done, and just again building that understanding of what this does. I'm not just trying to hard sell you for the reason to pad my pocket, but I want you to be able to get the most money out of your investment while you're doing service with me. And outside of that, just inspecting what you expect. Spending that 15 to 20 minutes with your team to say, okay, hey, we have this traction machine in place in most of our stores, and so I visit with my managers on the regular, saying, we have the same amount of scans. What is this person's closing rate in comparison to this person's closing rate? How can we better equip them to present like we know how to our customers the reason as to why this is important, and making sure that everyone is a well-rounded advisor. We all have our strong suits, but I think if you don't spend that time to make sure that everyone's brought along and their shortcomings, you're doing yourself a disservice. But no, it's very important for the customer to understand it. It's easy to say this is what you need and this is how much it is, but for them to actually be able to understand the reason why and to leave better knowing and to be able to go forward in their next decision. Whether it's their sibling's car or their spouse's car or whatever, they'll always be able to come back to that and say, well, Justin was able to tell me that this is this, and and just making sure that they have the trust in you, because that's what our entire model is founded on.
Perfect. Yep, exactly. Hey, Christian, I mentioned that I was a BMW driver. My wife is as well. And she and I have this running thing. About every day I walk out and I walk through the garage and I walk by her car, and there's another, I would call it a curb rash on her rim, because those BMWs have about this much, sidewall on them. And every time somebody whacks that rim or that sidewall on a curb, there's a pretty good chance they've knocked something out in the alignment. Right. And with those big fat tires that are on those cars, like we talked about earlier, there's thousands of dollars in repairs, and being preemptive on that and trying to maximize the wear of the life has got to be a big deal for any vehicle owner, but especially some of the higher line cars like BMWs, where some of those tires can be really expensive. Tell us about your experiences.
Well, that's correct. We see a lot of curve rashes coming in through here, and that's when we start recommending when the advisor does the walk around. And part of the walk around process, we have this scanner, and that helps out also as well, because it sits in red. It's going to show up in red because of the wear, and we put it out and we let them know that not necessarily has to pull the car to the left or to the right. It's just some degrees that is off and it's causing the tires to worn out. And that's when we have to educate our customers, letting them know that doing the alignment at that time is going to extend the life of the tire, and they're going to save some money in the long run, so they can be ready for next year or so to get those tires replaced. And a lot of boils down to education on the customers and explain everything to them, because not everybody knows exactly what's going on with their car. And, it's just visual. I think everything's visual. When you show them the pattern, the colors, everything else, they understand it better.
Yep. Yeah. It's, you said something very powerful there. The old days, the steering wheel doesn't need to be like this for the alignment to be off. It can be off just, a fraction, and over time it's going to prematurely wear out those tires, which speaks to cost of ownership, which is not only important to the customer, but it's important to the manufacturers and everybody that's in the automotive space right now, is trying to have the lowest cost of ownership they can. And I've always felt that this is a way to help the customer manage that. Scott, Subarus, enthusiast cars.
Right.
A little bit of off-roading sometimes, backwoods, going on hikes up there in the mountains in Tucson and in the desert, and you got to see your fair share of bent stuff and alignment opportunities down in Tucson.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot of people do like them, take them off-roading, go hiking. Maybe it's just to the trailhead, but you're still probably jumping a curb or going through a wash or something. So yeah, good chance to bend something. That's why I always tell the advisors, be sure, again, it comes back to the walk around, do a good walk around, get the customer involved, ask them to start the car, turn the wheels all the way to the side so you can get a good view of the tread base, point out any wear that you see or anything that looks abnormal. Get the customer looking at it. Visual is always the best selling tool. You can show them that, but also it's very important to train your advisors so that they do understand what an alignment does and the value in an alignment to the customer, because they have to believe in it to sell it to them and point out impart the value to the customer that their tires are going to last longer, the car's not going to pull, they're not going to wear out as quickly, it's going to handle better, all of that stuff. So they have to be able to talk to the customer about that and make them feel like there's good value in it, because alignments compared to buying a set of tires, they're not that much, but they're really worth it. And, they're due on a interval too, it should be once a year at least getting your alignment checked. And especially if you're doing any off-roading, I'd probably get it checked every 6 months. But,
yeah, exactly. All right, guys, I think we're coming up to about 4 minutes left here, 3 or 4 or 5 minutes left. So we've got, I've got a lightning round question for you, and I'm going to try to ask you to keep your answers short, a sentence or two. Forget all the statistics that we just talked about. Just tell me one thing that you're doing in your store that you, whether it pick tires or alignment, but do one thing that you think is having, sort of the biggest bang for the buck, or that, and maybe in your case, Mike, that you've done in the past in your stores. So, Justin, I'm going to start with you on this one.
We're utilizing traction, tread spec, tire profile tools. I have them in almost every one of my stores now, and I know that this isn't what this is for, but I'll give you all the glory just as well. We have them in all of our drives, and our alignments have tripled, and with that comes tire sales. Is there other options out there? Sure, but it's just making sure that you're taking the human error out of it. Every customer gets a text message that really truly has some great content in there to teach them about what's going on with their tires, what's going on with their alignments, looking at pay plans that aren't so gross driven to help advisors be more apt to sell tires, because as we know, they're not a high gross value item. And I think we had the discussion before that if we could put it as a value, you would give away tires at cost in order to retain that customer past that 36,000 mile mark. So we want our advisors to not so much worry that it's a loss leader, and just understand that how important it is to us to retain that customer for that, as long as we can. So, show me a pay plan, I'll show you a job description. And I think having them solely based on gross has prehistorically hurt the tire sales, because it's not as important to them, because there's other stuff that's on the tree that can be picked. That's my personal opinion.
Perfect. Christian, how about you? One thing real quick.
For us, it's the walk around and the visual. And I know we said this for the tread spec for me and the group glove, that works awesome. That we're very happy using it in my advisors. It's a selling tool. I know this is it. We didn't get paid for it.
I'm starting to think that I set this up. I honestly didn't. I did not set this up. I was, but anyway, thank you.
Absolutely. So we didn't get paid for this, but coming from an industry that we didn't have anything, we didn't have the tread spec, and it was hard sometimes to tell the customer, my technician is recommending an alignment. Why? And explain it to them. When it became visual with the green or yellow and red and says, hey, yes or no, and your tires are worn out, it changed the game. Customers understand better, and they said, okay, let's do it. I think I need it. And it boils down to the training, and my advisors do a very good job walking around the cars and showing them that printout and letting them know, and it needs it easy out.
Perfect. Scott, any last words?
Well, the tire profile tools, to jump on that bandwagon, they've really helped a lot. And other things, keep tires on display. You can't sell them if they can't smell them, and just talk to customers about it, and talk to your advisors all the time about it. Training for both the customers and advisors, keep them up to speed on where they're at, what they need, why they need it, things like that. It's really helpful.
Fabulous. Mike, I see that Ted's joined us again, so I think you got about 10 seconds before I get the hook.
I think he'll give me a little.
There you go.
10 seconds.
Okay, there you go.
I'd go back to don't focus so much on the numbers. Look at the big picture. Okay, if sales department's going to sell a car at cost to keep the volume going and hit that bonus from the manufacturer, look at selling tires at cost as the bonus for future retention. Let's not be shallow on our thinking about I'm only going to make 5% on this tire. Let's look at big picture. That customer's coming back to me. What is that worth to me? What is that worth to the dealership? And what's that worth for the next car sale?
Perfect. Ted, these are some pretty smart guys when it comes to tires and alignments, don't you think?
I think you got the best here. And, that advice from Mike Vogel just now, looking at the big picture, he's told me that often as well. And it starts with the tires, Dave. Everything starts with that. So great job to everyone on the panel, to Mike Vogel. Christian, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. Love to hear about that walk around. Love the fact that your advisors are doing it, and the visuals, that Dave has really, really, really compliment that in a strong way. Justin, great to have you with us here today. Thank you so much, my friend. And Scott, thank you for all that you do for our industry. We appreciate all the things that you do and all the work that you've done for us behind the scenes as well to put some of these things together. So appreciate it all. And Dave, thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate I know how busy everybody is, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to spend some time with us here today. Thank you. And thank you, Ted. Back over to you.
And everyone, if you want to go ahead and reach Dave Boyle at Tire Profiles, the URL, tireprofiles.com, is at the bottom of the screen. You can reach out to him there. And he's a great friend of the event. And I'm sure he will give you great advice if you seek him out on that as well, as will all the other people on the panel as well. Thank you, Dave. And Gene, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, thank you, Dave. Thank you, all the panelists. And folks, don't go away. There is a lot more ahead on day 2 at the Fixed Ops Roundtable Transformers right after this.